The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, or Spaced Out Radio Limited is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott, and I would like to invite you to listen Monday through Friday right here on Spaced Out Radio. 3 hours a night of the top stories with the top guests, ranging topics from UFOs to ETs, ghosts to Sasquatch, and everything in between. We are live every night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. So come on in and take a listen at spacedoutradio.com. Spaced Out Radio will take you out of this world.
Approach Sky 6316, 8.8 for 6,000. Got 6316, North Yelp Road, still maintain 3,000, number 1 to the right. 3,000, Sky 6316. Redwood 811, still maintain 4,000. Airport's open to Fox 1.
We take you higher and higher and higher. You're feeling over and over again. We take you higher and higher and higher. You're feeling over and over again.
6 Roman Terrafly runway heading runway 5. Let's take off.
Check!
And we're ready for takeoff. Sit back, relax. It's time to travel with Cosmic Passport. Spaced Out Weekend presents Elizabeth Anglin's Cosmic Passport, a 1-hour warm-up of news, stories, thoughts, and ideas to captivate your mind. You can follow us at spacedoutradio.com.
Now 20 years have passed us by, and we look back and count the time. Burning like the summer sun when the world was young. Sideways staring from the ground, and 7 trumpets wait to sound.
And now, here's Our Lady of Flight, Cosmic Passport with Elizabeth Anglin.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Weekend on spacedoutradio.com. This is Elizabeth Anglin, your host of Cosmic Passport, coming to you from Uncle Jimbo's cabin, tonight floating in the relatively snowy heavens of the far left coast of North America, anchored with snowy tendrils of love to the desert southwest, which is also going to get snow tonight. So we have something in common. We are so welcome and happy to welcome the newest member station of the Spaced Out Radio family coming soon, WQEE-FM 99 Rock, broadcasting to Greater Atlanta out of Noonan, Georgia. And we are so happy to be broadcasting Spaced Out Radio 7 nights a week on our listener stations, the Renegade Talk Radio in Las Vegas, UPRN 107.7 in New Orleans, Wolf Spirit Radio, and the High Plains Radio Network, Forest Moon Paranormal, and all the listeners coming to us from TuneIn and iTunes. Please join us on chat if this is your first night tuning in live. We have a chat room on Spreaker at spacedoutradio.com, and we also have a chat room at Facebook, SOR Space Travelers Chat Room. Now, to get into that chat room, you do need to become a space traveler, and that is for the price of just $5 a month, less than a large latte at a coffee shop. You can join. When you join, you'll receive swag, free books, private interviews, a newsletter, and archives of all the spacedoutradio.com shows and more. So come and join us. That's my favorite chat room, SOR Space Travelers. Tonight we are happy to welcome back, and enthusiastically we welcome back Richard Smith, the author of The Moor, the Mason, and the Alien, A Call to Action. His book talks about his experiences as an alien experiencer from a young age, things that happened to him and his family, his brother, his mother, and also some of the things that he has learned along the way in his conversations with a very interesting female alien from a group called the Vril, which is a group of lots of different species and types of aliens that work together and are interested in family and connections and helping human beings understand their cosmic origins and their cosmic birthright. Tonight, Richard and I are going to be talking about family life and alien influences. And this is an exceedingly important subject for me because, I didn't have the easiest family life because I had one parent who really had a problem with alien abductions and alien experiences, and I had another parent who knew about them and didn't have so much of a problem. So I had one parent sort of preparing me to find out, while the other parent was in very deep denial and skepticism. And that set me up for a sort of mixed bag in terms of my experiences with aliens as I went along. And Richard and I have talked about this somewhat, about how your family life can be both influenced by aliens and different alien groups, and also how your family life can influence how your experiences go for you. So, Richard, do you want to weigh in on this a little bit?
Sure. Thank you very much for that introduction there. It's great to be back on the show here. And, it's, I know you and I were talking a little bit about this earlier tonight. I know, I guess a lot of people out there have often figured, how does this kind of fit in with what goes on with people's extraterrestrial experiences versus their family relations, with their parents, their sons and daughters, their spouses, and so forth. How does that affect that aspect of your life there? How is it directly related to it? It's interesting that it's like the one thing we tend to so easily overlook in a lot of ways, because we are, in an environment that seems to put us under attack on all sides. And it doesn't matter whether it's paranormal or economic, it's all the same thing. But one of the most important things to realize in the paranormal arena that the family unit, and that comes in many different forms. I am not talking about the old, outdated Ozzie and Harriet nuclear family model. That's been proven to be a complete failure to begin with. Everybody has a different definition of the family unit. Even a street gang is a family unit. But, if we're just talking in the regular, everyday, sense of your neighborhood, the family unit is a stronghold. It's a power base. It's a foundation. And throughout all of history, there has always been that element that despises that because of its power and strength. Emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, socially, communally, okay? However you want to slice it and dice it, it has a strength to it that has stood the test of time with regards to those other elements that we might refer to as the alien abduction phenomena. which has no use for the family unit, doesn't care about it. So, now we can, from there, I know you have some questions about that. We can go in whatever direction you want there.
Yeah. Well, what I want to say is make it very clear that some things that appear to be alien abduction are alien agreements. So, for example, I do, and I've talked to you about working with the Vril. I work with the Vril. I've also, when I was younger, perceived that I was being abducted by the Vril until I realized, I have an agreement with them. Now, I've also been abducted when I was younger, not lately at all, by what appear to be reptilians, or could have even been reabs, because there were elements of it that were kind of human, like the materials looked very human. Mm-hmm. And then you talk about the grays that are you give them a different name, but they're the very not nice abductor grays. Mm-hmm. What is the name that you've given them?
It's a very ancient. It's an ancient name. They're actually referred to as the Shetu government. It's spelled Shetu, and to show how that. I refer to them as the Shetu regime, more closely in the book. But throughout ancient history, when they came to power as the last, let's say, patriarchal takeover of the planet, down through time, the word Shetu became mispronounced as Shedu and Shadow. And so since they are the reigning government, this is how the phrase shadow government entered the lexicon of everyday life.
Mm-hmm. So those would be the ones that I've spoken about. If you've been listening to me for a long time, I call those the power mongers, because I did not know that they actually had a name like that. So I always have called them the power mongers. Now, I want to get into how, we have a lot of people who listen who have varying relationships and even what appear to be family relationships with different alien groups like the Lyrans, Pleiadians. I can talk about family relationships with, or family that live with the Vril, etc. And we're not talking about those groups as being anti-family. Is that correct?
No, yeah. That's a good distinction there. I know last month's episode we just sort of touched upon it there, but I was talking about the sisterhood, the female principle, the feminine goddess energy, and how that directly relates to the reference to the Vril. Okay, and that power there. Well, as we all know, it is a woman that is the backbone of any given family or community or civilization. So that they're the good guys, yes. They are family-oriented, relationship-oriented, community-oriented, and so that manifests in a lot of ways as, a female, a woman, the female principle. And so it's no mystery how through time it is a woman or women in general, who were forced out of a powerful community decision-making process, like the ancient clan mothers of Native America, who basically were stripped of rank and power because that female, the woman, the mother, the sister, the daughter, that is seen as not only the pinnacle definition of family and community, but also the ultimate threat to the opposing team. And this is why women throughout history have been looking through a glass ceiling, coming under attack, professional attacks, physical attacks, mental and social attacks. I mean, anything and everything under the sun to denigrate the one thing that represents the stronger, better half of the species. And what better way to take down the human race or its sense of community than to destroy the woman?
And I'm going to maybe add something there. When you say stronger and better, in having lived as long as I have, some of the ways that women are very strong are in empathy and intuition and multitasking and being able to do many things at once, having a sort of flexibility and flowingness that allows them to include others in their life when they're doing other things, which, sometimes we don't necessarily see that so much from the male side. Men can be very focused, but they can also, in their focus, perhaps neglect to be inclusive. Not all men, obviously.
Yes.
But I want to say that because one of the things that I've learned from the Vril, and one of the things that they were always saying, like in my wake-up experience, I was woken up by a little blue guy, and he was saying, look at me, see, we are related. And
okay.
do you understand what I'm saying? So he was
Yes.
trying to show me the way in which we were related, and in his mind it had something to do with the shape of our face and the shape of our cheekbones, not necessarily our eyes, but we had a similar shaped face and similar cheekbones. And he was like, see, we are related. Of course, at the time, this was the first time it was, or second time I was consciously looking at the first time I screened my head off. This time I was immobilized, so I basically yelled at him in my head.
Okay. Right.
But as time went on, most of the things, when I looked back at all the other interactions I had with this group, it was, look at the frogs, you're related. Look at the things in the pond, you're related. Look at the world. Everything here is a relation, so very much like the Native American, you are all related. And it has since come about that biologists have figured out that a lot of our DNA and a lot of the bacteria in our gut and even our mitochondria come from other animals. We are not, there wasn't some big white dude in the sky who made us, right?
Well, I guess that shoots that theory right out the window.
That shoots it right out because, we had a lot of single-celled organisms and, and we look like a frog when we're in the, a tadpole when we're in the womb. We have so much DNA from so many other organisms who have lived here. It's something like 55%, I think they've quantified, of you really have these other organisms in you, part of you, and all on you. So I want to make that really clear to people.
Well, yeah. If you definitely, because you hit upon a strong point there. In terms of family, community, neighborhood, you want to, take it to the nth degree in terms of cosmology and astrophysics. We're all connected. Yeah. Because it's there's something to be said in terms of sharing genetics and being all part of the same pool of DNA. It doesn't matter what planet you come from. Granted, some species cannot crossbreed with others, just because of their makeup, but it doesn't change the fact that we all share the same DNA in one way or another. And there's that phrase, I can't remember if it's an old song, it just comes to mind now. We're all made of stardust, which kind of goes with the scientific viewpoint that in terms of space dust and everything getting recycled throughout the universe, the cell structure that makes us up today is, all of the cells in our body are reconstituted from someone who existed millions of years ago and maybe even not even on Earth. So, we're all connected that way. Space dust, stardust, DNA, okay? It's all the same poetic meaning there. And so that's...
energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It can only be converted into a different form. So if we're going outward in terms of relations, there's also the consciousness relationship. And this is something that the aliens were very clear about from the first time that I started having regressions and conscious experiences. It was, no, you're not going to necessarily die. You're going to live on. and because your consciousness doesn't go away, it's not destroyed. And they're very clear on that. And in that, there's also this ability to have relations across time that have to do with where your consciousness has been. So
yeah, right. So it's I know it's important for people to understand that that the family unit, in whatever form it takes, is an extremely important ally in terms of the, what some might refer to as the power mongers, or and because over the years, and I think the pinnacle point where it all came to a head was somewhere around the year 2000 for me. It had come a point in time where I started realizing there seems to be a really big difference between the experiences I'm having and those experiences that some people were having on the other side of the aisle, in terms of these hostile, abusive abduction experiences. And I had to ask the question, okay, what's going on here? Mm-hmm. We're all having the same dialogue to some degree, but some of us are coming up on one end of the spectrum as beaten victims, whereas others, like myself, were having experiences that were not altogether nice, but then again weren't coming from the perspective of being a victim either. They were more educational, and I use that term loosely, because I describe in the book what those educational lessons were like. And at a certain point I realized, okay, here's the fundamental difference. I was raised in an environment where my parents were supportive 110%. They were in fact, it's my mother who set me down this path. I mean, you want to talk about a generational phenomena. My grandmother was psychic. She had very gifted capabilities, which, I often wonder if I had a chance to go back in time and have this conversation with my grandmother now, what would she say? And I have a feeling she'd probably have a big smile on her face, as if to say, well, it's about time you caught up with what I was waiting for. My mother is the person who would, in a sense, teach a lot of forbidden stuff that, she told me is that you can't repeat this in grade school. If I'm going to teach you about this, you have to keep it, on the QT. And, it was about ancient astronauts and how it splices right into esoteric literature, be it the Quran, the Bible, the Torah, Egyptian literature, Vedic literature. And, I was raised on Star Trek and Star Wars. That's where I was in my generation. And for us, there was nothing fictional about it, because the only way these movie directors were getting this information is because it was being handed off to them. It's in a very in a very elusive way. George Lucas would always skirt the issue by saying, well, I did a lot of reading and research before I sat down and wrote the first chapter of Star Wars. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then we find out that Earth's cosmological history is the very inspiration for how he came up with Star Wars. And then, of course, there was the aspect of growing up with that generation of movies, TV shows, and so forth, which I talk about in the book as being the invisible college from my generation, and how that influenced and propelled things forward in such a way into the family environment that it ended up manifesting itself in that generation when all of us reached our 30s and 40s, as we are now, where the whole conversation changed. as opposed to the witch hunts of the 80s. All of a sudden, here we are in 2017. No more witch hunts. Okay. In fact, nowadays, people are more embarrassed to be called a Republican or a Christian than they are to be called an alien abductee. So, the tables have turned now. And that's a good thing, because we're moving into forward motion with the dialogue. We're not wasting our time with this petty juvenile conversation about, are UFOs real? Have aliens visited this planet? We've evolved past that juvenile discussion. We're on to the heavy-hitting stuff now. How does this affect our society? How does this affect my family? Why is my family under attack? Okay, and we're not just talking about the alien abduction phenomena, because that's just a more sensational manifestation of the economic strife we're experiencing now. And they both go hand in hand with each other.
How do they do that? Yeah, well, I mean, how would you say that they do? Because there's a lot of stress, and it can even be. I know from my experience, I had a mother who she stressed about money. Money was fine; we didn't have an issue with money, but she made it an issue, and she was the one who most of the attacks came through from the reptilian side, from the side that just really had issues with family. Most of the attacks of me as an experiencer, most of the attacks on my dad came through her, but it also came through money, and her fear of not having enough. So talk more about that. How are they the same thing from the microcosm to the macrocosm? Can you do that?
Yeah, definitely. And basically, in a nutshell, there's the polar opposite, the adversary to the family unit is the corporate mentality. Okay, now where does the corporation come from? It's not a human invention. It is something that snuck its way into our democracy by taking advantage of certain weak-minded presidential administrations like Ulysses S. Grant. Great general in the Civil War, but horrendous president. And the corporate interests, lobbyists of the time, came at him with that original argument. And where was that? The argument was, well, you're interfering with the growth of capitalism and enterprise by limiting the existence of corporations to only a certain amount of time, which is the way it was supposed to be. It wasn't supposed to be this monstrosity we have today, which uses eminent domain to wipe the floor up with communities and neighborhoods, and treats the family unit as nothing more than a nuisance to kick aside, while it's getting away with murder, calling itself its own little country that is untouchable by any established government of any country. And where does this come from? Well, this was all propelled forward, once again, by the power mongers who operate behind the scenes, because the construct of a corporation is not something human. It's not something earthly. It is, it is extraterrestrial by nature. It is multiple entities operating as one. It is basically the definition of schizophrenia and multiple personality disorder. And any sociologist or psychologist worth their salt will tell you that, because there's been any number of psychological and sociological analyses of these larger monster transnational corporations on this planet, and every analysis comes back the same. Schizophrenic, multiple personality disorder. That's how a corporation operates. And just personality disorder in terms of, no ethics or empathy, just hungry gluttonism, me. And this me mentality, which is also very anti-human. We are raised with this self-destructive, anti-human view of ourselves that the average human being is hateful, greedy, selfish, small-minded. Well, yes, they are, but that's because they were engineered that way by social conditioning. You know,
we're malleable. We can change
right.
quickly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we tend to gravitate towards the bad stuff a lot quicker because it's easier to feed the reptilian mind that we're all, infested with, that fight or flight mentality. Where do those genetics, those corporate funded genetics, come from? Well, when you start looking at ancient history and where these things all originated from, there's nothing new about the corporation. It's been around since the beginning of time. I mean, in the good old days, they called it the high priesthood. Nowadays, we call it the pharmaceutical multinational. Same thing. And this mentality came from what I refer to as the Orion Empire, okay, which is your reptilian queens, your basically what's referred to as the seer, this elite order. And they're out for just pure expansion of the empire, don't care about anybody else, mine, me, expand the empire, gain all those tradable commodities, suck up all those planets, all those solar systems, strip mine everything. You wonder where we got the idea for hydrofracking from. And where does this belligerence of, we know we're turning water into something poisonous that actually lights up as a flame in the sink and burns you alive, okay, and sets the house on fire as soon as you turn the faucet on. Everybody knows this. Why are you still doing it? Where is this reptilian mentality coming from? It comes from generations of breeding, social engineering, and handpicking certain people who, unfortunately, as misguided as they are, have willingly joined the Billionaire Boys Club and turned their back on their fellow brothers and sisters. And part of me feels sorry for them because they're the ones that are in for the sad awakening when they realize they are not the masters that they thought they were. They are merely middle management, okay? And when the time comes for the true landlord to come and, take payment on the paycheck here, they're going to be up the creek. And they're not going to have any family or community unit to fall back on because they decided to cloak themselves in the blanket of their own cold and callous corporation. And once they become stripped of that, they have nothing.
And this has got to be another psychological disorder, which is this idea that ownership creates identity. And you are what you own, but actually that's hollow when it comes to truly being human. I don't know what it's called, but it's an extremely hollow state of being and extremely insecure.
You hit upon something there in terms of the word hollow, definitely, because the idea is that you could invest everything about you in the construct of a corporation. And in some cases, it even goes to the nth degree, and it's referred to as a living trust, which is something that, believe it or not, is completely out of the hands of the judicial courts, the legislature, the president. If you put any stock in any kind of legitimate government at all, I don't, but some people do. Any legitimate government has to respect the existence of a living trust, and what that simply means is just a larger version, a larger universe of the corporation, where you take everything you own, including yourself, and you stick it inside this legal thing called a living trust, and everything about you becomes untouchable in a court of law. And the hollowness of it is that you're trading in your own humanity to be replaced by this hollow shell of a corporation. So there's nothing left of you. And how different is this from the actual existence of a shadow government that operates in the corners, dark shadows, has no identity but is everywhere at once? Well, isn't that the definition of a hollowed out corporation? It's everywhere at once, but it has no identity. So This is the parallel. This is where the extraterrestrial, reptilian, canine mentality came from. The existence of a corporeal entity that has no existence at all. Soulless, no spirituality, no nothing. And this is where the concept...
no morality, no ethics, no spiritual growth, because you're not learning a lesson. If there are no consequences, what lesson do you learn? Oh,
and also, yeah, I know, and also too, it just, I mean, we all are, in one way or another, we're all small business owners. Whether we're selling ourselves, selling our arts, selling our goods, our services, whatever we are, car repairs, graphic design, call it what you will. We're not talking about mom and pop capitalism here, okay? We're talking about corporatism, capitalism with a big old giant fat C, the size of which would topple Mount Everest, okay? That's the capitalism we're talking about, the kind that was never, ever supposed to exist, because it's very alien. And for that very reason that I explained there, it's not something that belongs to the human race. It's not something that belongs to your community, okay? It's not even something that has any respect for the existence and the value of a family support mechanism. So that's the opposing team in a nutshell there. It comes down to the family versus, the corporate entity. And,
And even the tribe, or, the tribe, which is the extended family. So this is reminding me that when I first went through my experiences, and I'm having the alien experience, and then I'm going out into the world and I'm looking around, and this is the early 90s when the economy was not good. George Bush had just sent us to war. George Bush the first had sent us to war, the first Iraq war, and the economy was tanking at the same time. And the thing that I remember feeling the most, in between experiences, which were 2 or 3 times a week, was that how much I would rather live in a tribal society and make art.
Yeah, definitely. Right.
Because there was nothing. You feel like completely. I felt like a sheet of glass. There was nothing for me to hang on to, but also. No. When you live in a corporate society, individual expression is not welcome. When you live in a tribal society, individual expression is part of the everyday life. Oh, this was made by, Grandma Etsy, and this is the way she does her rugs, and and this is the way. Karen Moore does her rugs, and this is so people would know each other's individual expressions and really be into them and be appreciative of them. But in corporate society, it's not about the individual expression. It's just, what did you do for us today?
Talking about tribal art too. I mean, when you look at when the human race had been unfortunately sent into an ice age, and then we started, those advanced civilizations had left things behind for those who would remember as we crawled, generations and millennia later, when we started crawling out of the ice age, those who remembered the knowledge of the ancients, they started projecting it onto the walls by chewing the pigment in their mouth and spitting it onto the wall to create these elaborate-looking cave paintings. And it was a projection of themselves because they saw themselves as the living embodiment of what survived from those greater and grander times when the human race had been elevated to a higher level. And climbing out of the ice age and, living and learning to live in caves, they decided, okay, I need to leave a legacy behind as well to let people know what was going on here. So they start putting, and that's why some of those cave paintings are portraying these rather questionable looking beings in a spacesuit, okay, right alongside a buffalo, all right, or a horse. And because they were trying to say, hey, these were the ones that were helping us. They've always been helping us. They've always been here. They had to leave us alone for a little while the planet healed, because the planet was so beaten up, henceforth sending us into an ice age. They couldn't touch us for a while, but they're still here, and they're coming back. And this was the meaning of those spiritual cave paintings. The very act of chewing the pigment and spitting it on the wall was a projection of yourself. Talk about ancient DNA. Those cave paintings have that ancient saliva in them, you know? So in terms of the value of the human being, the family unit, and the global community at large as the larger family of man, I believe there's been some talk in the chat room here about meteors hitting the planet. Mario Perales brings up a point here. He says, I'm looking forward to Thursday to see if the Russian astronomers' prediction of the meteor strike will happen. I know Shar will not be able to sleep that night.
No,
yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
But I get that question all the time. What about, asteroids and meteorites hitting the planet? I said, first of all, you want to talk about a common foe that forces both the good guys and the bad guys to see eye to eye to each other on at least one issue. It's an extinction level event that will never, ever happen. Okay? The good guys have a vested interest in the spiritual development of the human being, the human condition, how it fits in with the ecosystem, both physically and spiritually and economically with the planet. Okay? Let's face it. Earth can live without us, but we can't live without Earth. Okay? We have to kowtow to that equation if we want to live. And then there's the bad guys who have a vested interest in the tradable commodities and profit margins that we, the human being, lives on. Okay, because they just see us as pure, cheap bantha fodder and slave, that can be replaced. But in the end of it all, whether you're the good guy or the bad guy, whatever side of the equation you're coming on, the last thing either of them want is an extinction level event, because there was too much loss, tragic loss, in this solar system already when things got out of control and Earth was born out of the ashes of its former, incarnation, what it used to be known a long, long time ago as Tiamat.
Which is Tiamat, okay.
Yeah,
and
the fourth
was this
orbit from the sun. Yeah.
And then also Atlantis and Lemuria as well.
These
were all destroyed.
Horrendous losses. Yeah. The largest chunk of the asteroid belt that could retain an atmosphere floated into an artificial third orbit, which basically blows the scientific view right out of the water. These academics who always say, well, Earth's in the perfect orbit to produce life. No. The perfect orbit already existed as the fourth planet out between Mars and Jupiter. But, since NASA is probably smoking some ganja there, they tend to confuse the facts by just looking at the symptom, which is Earth in an artificial third orbit, and treating it like a cause, and that's a total lie. Earth is the abused remnant of what got left over, and it really isn't supposed to be in that third orbit, because ultimately the question is, in terms of the galactic, our solar system as a community, why are the planets, the four so-called inner planets, crammed all together, relatively speaking, and then there's this big gaping hole between Mars and Jupiter filled in by this rather strange thing called an asteroid belt? And if you were to take the asteroid belt and put it all back together, it would basically complement what's missing from our planet right now. So the point is that both sides, bad guys and good guys, have an extreme priority vested in making damn sure that nothing like that ever happens again. And so, Yeah,
I
go
think
ahead.
I want to mention also that astrobiologists have actually looked at Earth in a sort of wonder that we have a moon that is as far away as it is the perfect distance away, it is the perfect size. It allows us to have, I think it relates to the Van Allen belts and also relates to the energy of the planet, we wouldn't necessarily have the electromagnetic stability that we have if we didn't have the moon that we had. And they're kind of going, how the heck did that happen? You know,
Right, right.
How the heck did that happen? In this position where Earth is, it actually shouldn't work. But the fact that it has this moon, which is the perfect size and does the perfect thing, it does work, because all of a sudden we have this protective shield around us, even though we're probably closer than we might ought to be. I don't know. That's interesting. That just made me think of that for a bit. I tend to agree with you. For those of you who are worried that we're going to get hit by an asteroid, I tend to agree with Richard. In fact, I've had conversations about things like this with different aliens. I worry not so much about that.
It's the human being has a tremendous legacy that has been hidden from us for far too long. We've been cheated out of it. It's been robbed from us. We've been, one of the great lines from Malcolm X, we didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us. And that's so true in terms of the entire history of the human race. Okay? We've had everything taken away from us. And the problem is that in terms of the existence of the family support mechanism and the community support mechanism, people are going to have to wake up on their own and be willing to accept that there's more to the human equation than meets the eye. There's a legacy among the stars that was taken away from us. Okay, we were de-evolved, which runs parallel to a tremendously long ice age the last time around. And there was a magnificent, a number of civilizations that existed long before the Ice Age. The fact that, cave dwellings, the so-called stereotypical caveman, existed right alongside rock geodes that have highly advanced technological capacitors, diodes, and transistors embedded in the rock strata right next to the fossil record. Okay, how come NASA doesn't want to talk about that? Okay, it didn't get there by itself. All right, there was a thriving community on this planet long before it all went downhill. And the planet went through all these trials and tribulations there on kind of a slingshot effect, through the galaxy there, as we're getting whipped around here on this roller coaster ride in rotation. So, we're coming out of this now, the so-called, age of Aquarius that we've walked into here. And in terms of having the support mechanism of family, that's going to become important, because the one thing I noticed in terms of alien abductees who are having a hell of a time with their experiences, you notice they tend to get shunned or treated like they're not allowed to talk to their family members. Their parents disown them.
The black sheep of the family, simply because you are the one. And that makes sense. I mean, there's jealousy. If you had parents trying to protect you and your siblings were aware that you were the one being protected and they were not, you end up with jealousy about, why is she getting protected? I'm scared too. It's a very deep dynamic of... it's very possible that the abductee or the contactee or the one that has the aliens around them is going to be shunned because A, that's scary, B, that's not normal, C, it's not acceptable in our society. And hey, I'm scared, what about me? What about me? And that was my situation with not my older brother, but I think very much my sister. That well, you get all the protection, I get nothing.
Yeah.
So.
I know. And you know what? Someone in the chat room brings up a good question here. John Connor, a couple of minutes ago, he says, but isn't there enough evidence to prove that humankind has been created and destroyed many times already?
Yeah.
The answer to that is yes, strictly from a psychological and mental perspective. Okay? You don't necessarily have to destroy a civilization, per se, although that tends to go with it. You don't necessarily have to destroy the whole planet. You just have to destroy the mind and make the mind think that everything else was never there.
The memory.
Right. So this long-term social conditioning, which ends up culminating in short-term brainwashing in the modern-day sense, it's a case of creating so many screened layers in the cell memory and racial memory of our ancestral history, which is passed down by DNA through generation after generation in the community, in the family, okay, that it becomes painful for the average human being to go back and remember what they lost. First of all, there's the sense of emotional nostalgia if they ever did remember. I mean, how many of you out there who are listening feel that sense of nostalgia like, hey, I really don't belong here. I come from somewhere else, and I'd like to go home. I got that feeling for a period of time when I saw the movie adaptation of the movie Contact with Jodie Foster back in the 90s. And for several weeks after that, I was in a funk because the movie had affected me in a very deep and emotional way, because something had erupted inside of me after seeing that. And I thought, talking about the family unit, I thought it was beautiful the way they rounded out the whole alien contact issue by having them portray themselves as the image of her father in the experience. Now, here's where you see the people who don't place a value on family, okay, or understand that scene and the way it was done, because there were a lot of people who have very short-sighted and stunted views of things, and when they went to see the movie Contact, they were disappointed. And what was the one thing they pointed out as being disappointing? It was the fact that they never got to see the alien, and it turns out to be the visage of her father, to which I say, bravo, that's the way it should be. Okay? That's when things come full circle.
Yes.
So.
Okay, I have a question for you from the chat room, and this has to do with citing some of your sources for some of the thoughts that you've shared with us tonight before we go on to the next part of the show with James. So I know your mother taught you some things, and you've also worked with the woman from the Vril, but how would you qualify where your ideas and where your thoughts have come from, or what your sources are?
They tend to come from a hybrid of two sources, okay? One source, the stuff I've been able to target, nail down, and go after over the past 20 years is what I have done my very, very best to list as a detailed bibliography in the back of the book. And it is rather extensive. It actually parallels the lecture syllabus I use for my seminars. But I just turned it into a bibliography for the back of the book so people could go and, basically follow the breadcrumbs there and, come to their own conclusion.
Is it on your website? I think I remember it being on your website as well, UFOteacher.com.
Yeah, if they go to my website, if they go to the About section at UFOteacher.com, which is my bio is on there, you'll see in the left side column there's a link that says Lecture Syllabus. They can download the PDF right there and take a look at it themselves. I'm always in the process of updating it as well whenever I find new things, And it comes in many forms, books, research, magazine articles, newspaper articles, video documentaries posted on YouTube or elsewhere. It's basically pulling this this quilt of knowledge together, all these different fabrics and pieces and strings pulled together, so people can see where a lot of this stuff is coming from for real, concrete
Right.
down to earth. Now, I did say it was a hybrid of two sources, so what's the other source? Well, the other source is what basically comes from what I refer to as quote-unquote the conversation, okay, which has been going on since the early 90s with the entity that I refer to, and I think I described in the last show, as the crone, this female praying mantis type being, an ancient healer. And so a lot of the stuff comes from those conversations. I use that term so people can relate to it, but early on, I often refer to it as, downloading.
Right.
And over the years, I was told in those conversations, look, run with this. History is on your side. The sources you're looking for to prove this out will make themselves known to you. And sure enough, that's what's happened, because over the years, I've been guided to actual, real, physical flesh and bone teachers and mentors who saw what I was talking about, and that generated yet another conversation with that person. And I also I list some of their names in the back of the book as my mentors, but not all of them, because some of them would only come out of the woodwork to talk to me under the stipulation they remained anonymous, so some of them aren't listed there. And
Right.
so, yeah, because, when they, you've probably experienced this yourself, when these people, it's been my experience over the past 20 years that when they see someone like me come along, they're like, okay, that's the guy with the backbone who will stand up in front of a mic and scream it at the top of his lungs. That's the one we're going to share it with. And, they tend to pick up on the frequency that, oh, hey, this person is already in contact with, these extraterrestrial entities. So it just goes hand in hand and snowballs from there. But I've done my very best to be fair to everyone and tried my very best to nail it down in the back of the book with an extensive bibliography.
Great.
So.
That's wonderful. And tomorrow night we're going to talk about that some more, and we're also going to talk some more about the different groups and continue on the conversations. And I also want to get into some tech tomorrow. We are running out of time for tonight, but we're going to continue the conversation. James is going to be coming on with his guest, June Lundgren, in just a few minutes. Thank you all for listening tonight to Richard Smith, the author of The Moor, The Mason, and the Alien, and thank you for being here on Cosmic Passport on Spaced Out Weekend. We love that you are listening, and we're going to bring you much more good stuff from Richard Smith tomorrow night. Richard, thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Good night.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott, and I would like to invite you to listen Monday through Friday right here on Spaced Out Radio. 3 hours a night of the top stories with the top guests, ranging topics from UFOs to ETs, ghosts to Sasquatch, and everything in between. We are live every night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. So come on in and take a listen at spacedoutradio.com. Spaced Out Radio will take you out of this world.
Hi there, this is your psychic medium Joanna, and I would love it if you would join us every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. With host James Tyson, we'll bring you personal psychic messages on 2 mediums and a large. Questions about love, life, career changes. We would love it if you would come and join us live. Call in and listen in for the experience. allow us to open the doors to your other side. Two mediums and a large, heard only on Spaced Out Weekend at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for news beyond the mainstream news? Head to spacedoutradio.com and check out the SOR Spacewire. This is Spaced Out Radio's Eric Markham, News Director for the SOR Spacewire. Daily, I will bring you intriguing stories and outlandish reports from what's going on around the world. UFO sightings, paranormal activity, conspiracies, alternative health, and so much more. And if you have news, email me at news@spacedoutradio.com.
Attention Spaced Out Radio listeners. For only $5 a month, you can join Spaced Out Radio Space Travelers. Your membership at spacedoutradio.com will give you access to private fan area on the website, get you a monthly newsletter, draws for monthly swag, and a whole lot more. Sign up today to become a part of the Spaced Out Radio experience.
For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. Stories so weird that will leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
It's time to go live on Spaced Out Weekend.
13, please. Oh, hi, Kevin. Oh, is that the time? Kevin, my friend, don't you find that watch just a little bit loud? Well, I certainly hope our buddy Bumblefoot is playing when we get there. Oh, you stinky big bundle of hair. I said Bumblefoot, not Bigfoot. Oh, it's going to be a long night.
It's time to head to the 13th floor of the old log cabin for Spaced Out Weekend with James Tyson. You can tweet James at James Tyson SOR. You can find him on Instagram, Spaced Out Weekend, as well as on Facebook. On YouTube, our channel is Spaced Out Radio Show, and you can check out our website, spacedoutradio.com.
Little brother has taken control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all connected but separated, misunderstood and so frustrated. A million armies of one have invaded, watching you and watching me. We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere. Watch it.
Ladies and gentlemen, the story you are about to see is true. The names have been changed to protect the innocent.
And now, perched high in his captain's chair, way above the clouds, Here's James Tyson.
Hello, everybody. It is I, James Tyson, broadcasting to you from my little log cabin, the 13th floor of the Spaced Out Radio Network here in the paranormal portals of Cascadia, the Pacific Northwest, the Canadian lower left coast, where we still have a crap load of snow. We have far too much. It's crazy. My new motorcycle's in the shop. I told them, just look after it. Don't deliver it yet. It's not a happy place to come. But we would, on Spaced Out Weekend, like to welcome you and those listening at spacedoutradio.com, the High Plains Talk Radio Network, and soon to be WQEE 99 Rock the Key in the greater Atlanta area, as well as our friends way down in New Orleans on the United Public Radio Network 107.7 FM, and their listeners from over 160 million countries around the world. Maybe I wasn't listening to Richard Smith properly in the first hour. Maybe there's not that many countries on this planet. But here at Spaced Out Radio, we broadcast every night of the week, and we want to be your one-stop shop when it comes to the supernatural, conspiracy, paranormal, UFO, and spiritual, and much more. And we'd like to thank our music man himself, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, for all the music that is supplied by him to us on Spaced Out Radio. And tonight we've got a wonderful guest. She is just another Cascadian from down the road. June Lundgren is a psychic medium, nurse, demon seer, animal communicator, and international author. Descended from a long line of women with psychic and spiritual gifts. Of Irish, Scottish, and American Indian descent, she was raised by her grandparents for the first 5 years of her life. June's grandmother also had mediumistic abilities. As a young child, June communicated with animals and angels while living in a secure home with her grandparents. That must have been interesting. She joined the military before she graduated from high school in 1976 and left after graduation and was trained as a nurse and an EMT. After returning from the military, June worked as a nurse. She helped people with their paranormal problems and intuitive readings. About 20 years ago, June was given the ability to remove demons, and she's been quietly doing so ever since. Her first book, A Medium's Guide to the Paranormal, was released in 2009. Since then, she has written 6 more books and has been a member of the Northwest Paranormal Investigative Team for the past 4 years as their occult specialist for the team. She loves working and helping animals and offers her animal communication abilities for free to rescue groups. She lives on a small farm in Oregon City, Oregon, with her husband, son, and a sundry of animals, working full-time as a nurse, 4 days a week, when she continues to write when she can. June, welcome to our little log cabin here on Spaced Out Weekend.
Thank you for having me.
Oh,
I love these little log cabins.
Yeah. Well, you kind of we live in that little log cabin kind of area here in the Pacific Northwest.
That's true.
Did you grow up here? Is this where you grew up?
Actually, was raised for the first 5 years in Kansas by my grandparents, and then we all moved out this way when I was almost 6.
That's that tornado, right? I saw that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, swept you away. Now,
yeah,
I want to go back to that time you were raised by your grandparents, and how did you first realize that you had, I don't even know if it would be called a gift back then, it was just something you would have been doing, communicating with what has come to be angels. How did that all manifest itself in your life? Do you remember?
I was fortunate enough that, my grandmother had the abilities, and she saw that I was talking to, what she could see also, angels and spirits. And so she basically taught me from the time that I could talk all the way up to 5 or 6, and, taught me how to tell the good ones from the bad ones, what to talk to, what not to talk to, how to communicate with animals. It was fun. She never made it seem like it wasn't, anything out of the ordinary. You know, it was just normal for her, and so it became normal for me.
Yeah, that would make that transition not even a transition for you because you've always been able to do it, but make it a lot easier to accept when you had somebody calmly taking you through it. It would have presented itself to you as very natural and therefore just something everyone did. When did it occur to you that you weren't like everybody else?
I think it was when my mother ended up coming back into my life and, you know, taking me to live with her. All the women in the family have abilities, but she doesn't really have. She has them, but they scare her, so she doesn't use them. And when she took me back to live with her, it was not a good thing to be able to communicate with anything. I was actually beaten quite severely for any time she caught me talking to animals or talking to the other side. So I learned to keep it all inside.
Yeah. Did she go through a rough time when she was a kid?
No, she didn't. The thing is, my mom's bipolar.
Oh.
And bipolar with a really, really bad temper and won't admit that she has the issue to be able to get on medicine. So.
Is she still with us?
Yes.
Okay. Hey, you were unfortunately went through that trauma as a child, leaving your grandmother's. And I say trauma because that would have been a complete 180 from the nurturing and it's okay, you're not crazy attitude of your grandmother into this complete different thing as a small child. Anyway, looking back, you can go, okay, this is why. But at the time, that would have been very confusing. How long did it take you to break back out of that?
It was, most of my mother was very controlling, and I joined the military when I was 17. I had my mother sign the papers.
Yeah.
And so the minute I turned 18, I was gone. So I didn't really start using my abilities again until I left home.
You weren't one of those special people in the military, were you? Where they kind of picked you out and said, "Hey, come over here. We'd like you to do remote viewing or something."
It's frowned on. See, I never mentioned it in there. And when I was on when I was off duty, it was fine. But I never mentioned it. Anything to do with it when I was on duty.
Yeah, because that would have been... I've heard stories of people that were kind of picked out. They'd have somebody walk through and, big notes. And I guess the person walking through is identifying. They could tell people who were sensitive.
My godfather was... Yeah, my godfather worked in OSI. He was a bird colonel, medically retired. And it's the first thing he told me, don't say anything about it.
Okay.
And so I always learned to keep my mouth shut about that.
Well, was it don't say anything about it because Section 8 you, or they put you into a special unit?
Yeah, he said once you come on their radar, that's it.
Yeah. You're off underground somewhere doing remote viewing or doing some other interesting stuff.
Yeah, he says it's not good, so just don't even go there.
Yeah. There you go. Now you come out of the military, and you're right into an empath career as a nurse. One of those lovely giving back. What do you do with your gift? Does it help you at all? This is a silly question. Tell the listener how it helps you with your job of being around somebody and helping them.
I have the ability to sense medical issues within a person, and it helps me. I can feel, feel their depression. I can get a sense of what's going on with them, And also I can hear their guides and guardians tell me, this needs to be addressed or that needs to be addressed. So I can't really say to the patient, this is how I know. So I will ask them a leading question, and then they'll open up and start talking, and then I'll relay the information to the doctor.
Interesting. Does the doctor know you're doing that?
No.
Quiet.
Exactly.
Excellent. It's just between you and I and people from 160 million countries around the world. It is fascinating when you grow up within a family. Unfortunately, the break between your mother and you, but you had a good basis for it. You had that childhood basis that I understand. These are the switches you turn on, and these are the things I cannot talk to or shouldn't talk to. As you're doing some readings and things, we'll call it off duty from being a nurse. What type of things? Like, tell me about where you get your information from. Do you get it from your guides, or do you get it from the client's spirit guide?
It depends if their guides will come forward and talk to me. They won't always do that, but they'll talk to my guides, and so they converse, and I can hear the conversation, and so I'm privy to the conversation. But most of the time they'll talk to me, but once in a while there'll be some sort of an issue. And I have what they call knowing. I just know. Sometimes I get things that I just know, and it's not coming from either one of the guides. And that's where I say, it comes from God.
Oh, okay. How many guides do you have that actively pass on information for you?
I have my great-great-grandmother, Hannah, and my sister, Anne. She died at 2 months of age, but she comes back as I see her as she was in the lifetime prior to being my sister. So I see her as a full-grown person. And then there is Sarah, who is one of my guides that helps me through with my writing and stuff. And then I have two more that are kind of, one's for like education and the other one's for like trying to remind me to have fun.
And the education one keeps pushing the other one out of the way.
Yeah, a lot of times.
She's supposed to have fun now. No, she has to get her taxes done.
That's the work.
Do you have any, this is an odd question for you, but I'll explain why I'm asking. Do you have any guides that are extraterrestrial? ETs?
No.
No?
No. Although
okay.
I have dealt with a couple of clients who came to me that were abducted and wanted help with the removal of the chip that was placed within them.
Okay. And how do you go about removing a implant?
You can't really, per se, remove it, because I'm not a doctor. But the only thing I can do, I do healing, distance healing, hands-on healing. I was given the gift of healing, of laying on of hands. And you can burn it.
Oh.
From the inside.
Interesting.
So that's what I did for the son and the mother. And the son at the time wanted it done, and then he decided later that he didn't want it done, after it was already done, and that he wanted to go back up into the spaceship with them. And I'm like, you're on your own for that one.
Yeah, I can't really turn it back on again, but don't tell him I did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, lose my number.
Yeah, exactly.
I find it interesting when you do that. Now, the reason I asked about your ET guide that I've talked to a number of extremely well-known psychics from Wales to all through the U.S. Some very, very public psychics, and over the last couple of years, their primary guide has taken a step back and has been replaced by an ET. And
I refused.
Oh, they tried?
Yes, I refused.
Okay. Yeah, because we're wondering why now all these ET guides are coming forward, and what messages we're now trying to what has changed that all of a sudden everything is the other ones are just taking a step back. My primary guide I was introduced to only in 2012, and the spirit medium said she described him as being about, looking like he'd be from ancient Egypt about 30,000 years ago, and she said, but he's never been a soul walking on Earth, and that's all she said. And then later, somebody said, "Oh, your guides, they're ETs." I went, "What?" And that kind of made sense going back to the original statement. But he's my primary guide. But a human, or was a human guide, has stepped forward now, a woman. And she's kind of come in for this little bits and pieces that I'm going through now, I guess, for a while. But that I found very interesting, that very, very well-known psychics have been getting information now for the last year or so from ETs. When did you get approached by the ET guide?
It was about, years ago it was. I think it was closer to 6 years ago.
6 years ago. How does that happen? Like, is it, pardon me, but I almost have to imagine a bunch of people kind of hanging around the kitchen table talking, and there's a knock at the door, and 4 or 5 of them look around, look at each other, and go, oh, "Is it him again?" And you answer the door, and it's the Fuller Brush ET. How did he come in? And I was
meditating and doing a healing session. I do distance healing, and this one shows up and says, "This is who I am. This is what I want to do, and I want to help you." And I knew he wasn't someone who had walked in human form, because there was just something about him that wasn't normal. And I said, "Well, I'll have to think about it first." So I cleared out, got through with the meditative state, and Michael the Archangel's always with me all the time, 24/7. So we sat down and talked, and I told him, I said, "Michael, what do you think about this?" And he's like, "You know what? The Creator doesn't like them. They interfere where they're not supposed to be." And he said, "It's entirely up to you. But if you want to go and listen to them, that's fine." But he said, if it was me, I would not.
Okay. Interesting.
And I'm like, okay. So the next time I went into a meditative state and summoned him, and I told him, "No." I said, if the Creator doesn't like you, then I'm not dealing with you.
And how'd that work out?
And that was fine.
Yeah.
He backed off, and that was fine.
He probably just went down the street to the next one.
He went on to somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting, because we have a psychic, really, really gifted psychic. She's on, unfortunately, just down to once a month here now. That the information she brought in she was getting in regards to people who had passed in 9/11. We had callers phone in who lost family, and she was describing, "Oh yeah, he's here," and described him perfectly, and it was incredible, absolutely incredible, the accuracy she was getting. And now she's got a guide that she calls Rob, but he's extraterrestrial. And he was giving her information on what a Bigfoot is, and the Loch Ness Monster, and where Hitler died, and what town in Argentina he's buried in, and stuff that absolutely mind-boggling. I think we had a total of 6 hours worth of shows with Joanna, and everybody asking questions about everything but conspiracy theories. But it's amazing. Now, I asked her at one point, I said, how do we know that Rob's not lying?
Exactly.
And it's kind of, yes, he's giving a lot of information, and it's accurate about, as he's acting as a guide when you're doing you're doing a regular mediumship reading for somebody, and Rob is actually giving decent information, like guide to guide information.
Right.
But when we start asking him about things like Bigfoot and alien bases underground and things like that, how do we know he's telling the truth? There's definitely things he wouldn't talk about, and those were the conspiracies and things like that, but everything else, he was pretty darn open.
Yeah, see, that's just it. It's like anything that you get from the other side. You're only as good as the information that you're given. And, my grandmother raised me. She says, what you have to do is you have to try the spirits. It says in the Bible that you need to try the spirits, which means test them. Make sure that they are telling the truth, and that, that the information can be verified. And so I learned a long time ago not to leave myself open all the time to anything and everything. I use my guides as kind of like a go-between, because, if you just left yourself open all the time, it's like nonstop. You'd get everything. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Mm-hmm.
And I've learned to, over the years, how to protect myself, and that's, it's interesting because, like demons, one can appear as a child or a relative that's died, or a friend, and they'll lie through their teeth. They want to make you believe them. They want to, get into your good graces so that they can do what they want to do.
Yeah, it is interesting, particularly the demon side of things. I want to get into a little more of that in a few minutes, but when you started, you've actually wrote a book, your first book in 2009, A Medium's Guide to the Paranormal. First of all, were you involved in, say, paranormal investigations or clearing of homes and cleaning of homes prior to writing the book?
I was doing that before it was cool.
Yeah. Oh, Lord. Yeah. Before it was on TV, you were doing that.
Before it was ghost hunters and all that stuff. It's like, people would contact me by word of mouth. They were having issues in their homes or whatever. So I was doing that long before any of that sort of thing happened.
Yeah.
And I was asked to join a group 4 years ago. I was asked to be on a television program, a video called Paranormal Crossings.
Mm-hmm.
And the first recording of that actually happened in October, and the guy said, it's going to be on TV, it's going to air first locally, and then it's going to be on YouTube. And I'm like, okay, cool, So I'm waiting, and finally I contact him, about a month later, and say, when is it going to be on? And he gets back to me and he says, I don't know how to tell you this. He said, but I did 2 interviews that night. The first one was so-and-so, and that turned out perfectly. He said, we do backup with Blu-ray, we back it up on the computer, 3 different places. He said, but when I went to view yours, it was like it didn't even exist on any of the media. He says, you didn't exist.
Yeah.
And he thought I would be upset, so I started laughing. And he says, I thought you'd be upset. I said, why? I said, I remove demons. I said, this sort of thing happens all the time.
Oh, yeah. I do paranormal investigations, and you'll come out of there and the tapes, it's incredible how many times you've recorded something and go to play it back and it doesn't exist.
And it's not there, yeah. And so he says, would you please redo the interview? And this time I want, to talk about the dark side. And I'm like, okay, I said, I'll just bring Michael with me this time.
Yeah.
So we shot the interview and everything. And he was talking about, well, you say you brought Michael with you. And I said, yeah, he's on the ladder over there, where the camera couldn't see. So they swung the ladder around. I said, you're not going to catch him on video. I said, they're forbidden to do that. I said, but I can have him come over here. And as soon as I said that, Christina, who was the other host on the end, she says, oh my God. She says, this air has been blowing on me all night long, and suddenly there's a break in it.
Something's
and
blocking.
then I see this huge wing. And Michael came to stand behind Aaron, and he could feel him put his hand on his shoulder. And Aaron said that later, after the show, said he could see his reflection in the monitor that we watch. And I said, yeah, that's Michael. And he said, I saw this huge wing. I said, Michael's about 7 feet tall and he has a wingspan of about 12 feet. I said, it's a little hard to miss him. I'm used to him, so I don't pay no attention. And when we were talking, a little bit later, a few minutes later, I felt a demon enter. And I asked Michael telepathically, I said, are you feeling what I'm feeling? And he's like, oh yeah, I'm on it. Mm-hmm. And there's I think it's like, if you watch the video, it's at time index, I think, well, you have to watch it from time index 30 to time index 35. And you can hear the demon scream as Michael wraps his wing around it and pulls it down.
Interesting.
I have some recordings on my Mystic Connections website of the demonic screams as I take them out.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
And that's at www.mysticconnections.org. That's... not going to listen to that. I try to stay away from that stuff. You say you were given the ability to do this. Was that something you had a choice in?
I could have turned it down, but when God tells you, this is what I want you to do for me, you don't really turn it down. I'm like, I said, well, you couldn't give me something like fairy, like happy, joy stuff. And he's like, no. He says, this is what you did for me in all your lives, and will continue to do for me in this lifetime.
Okay.
And you have your reservations. Nobody in their right mind wants to do that. I mean, I know a lot of people that call them. I don't call myself a demonologist because I don't like the connotations.
Oh, thank goodness.
My grandmother calls me a demon seer. She's always around me too. But she's, it's like, okay, you didn't give me a manual. Let's figure this one out. And then he said, I'm going to show you something. And I'm like, okay. And then, I didn't hear from him for a little while. I had a motorcycle accident in 1988. Well, shortly after I met my husband. And I died in that motorcycle accident. A woman ran a red light and hit me. And I was thrown across the road. Ended up, against a brick wall. And I was clinically dead for 2 minutes. During that time, I ascended and crossed over. My grandparents were there. Michael was there. And he says, it's not your time. You need to go back. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I got things to do. And he says, you're going to relive your lives. So they show you your life over, they make you relive all your lives. to the core, what they call the core soul. And the core soul has another name. It's not like, the names you're going to get in any of your physical world lifetimes. And I'm like, no, that can't be me. That cannot be me. And he's like, yes, this is who your soul belongs to. And I'm like, I've never even heard of this archangel until then. Now, he says, your soul belongs to Ariel, the archangel. He said, you were sent back to relive lifetimes until you learn to have compassion for man. Evidently, she didn't have a lot of compassion for men and for mankind, and so God sent her back to relive lives until she learns to have compassion for man and to learn how to care for them again. And so I guess I must be hard-headed because I keep coming back time and again.
Well, you just didn't get it right. That's all.
I didn't. Yeah, I'm just, yeah, okay. Whatever, that was hard for me to take. It was hard for me to believe. It took me a long time to come to terms with that. But I was given proof. So it was very hard to come to terms with that.
Oh.
I put it off and put it away from me for a few years.
Oh, yeah.
And then when he asked me to start doing this, he said, your life as an archangel, that's what you did. You were an avenging angel. You did get rid of demons. You hunted demons. He said, so that's why you can do it in this lifetime. You'd think you'd be like scared out of your mind to go and do this, because all my life I'm told, that's bad, they can kill you, they can possess you and all this stuff. And so, you got to get past that part of it. And then you have to realize, what you have inside you. And Michael showed me a vision of her removing a demon and killing it. And he says, this is what you're capable of, and you need to come to terms with that before you can even start the process of removals. And so finally it took me a little bit, and I'm like, okay, so now when I go in to do a removal, you cannot have any fear when you're doing that. You cannot have any weakness. You have to have absolute faith in yourself, in God, and in your abilities. Because if you don't, they will get you. You will never remove the demon, and they will, just trash you physically, mentally, emotionally. And I don't have that. When I'm in that mode, it's kind of like having a dual personality. I can bring her forward to do the actual removal part of it. And people that have seen me said your whole face changes, even your eye color changes. It's not you there anymore. And I'm like, well, since I can't see myself, I don't care.
Yeah.
I just get the job done and get out.
Amazing.
It does
Absolutely
drain
amazing.
you. It does drain you. It takes me. I went about in October, and this man said, my house has been taken over. He says, I haven't lived in it in a couple of years, and transients have been in there, and there were five of them in there.
Wow.
I have a friend that goes with me now, and she's like my backup. And I'm just now going through the EVPs and stuff I got from there. You can hear the growling and stuff.
Yeah, one of my friends, Sean Whittington. I don't know if you know Sean. He does the same thing you do in Las Vegas, and he can't. His wife can see. We'll call them just ghosts.
Yeah.
That kind of spirit energy.
Oh yeah.
Sean can't see those, but what he can see when he walks into these houses is these strange things crawling on the ceilings, screaming.
Oh, yeah.
When he walks in the front door, they scream.
Yep, that's kind of like me. They don't want to see me come.
Yeah, he'll, and that's what he does. He goes in and he clears them out of the houses.
Yeah, those are what I call minions.
Yeah,
those are those are the minor ones.
The little fuzzy cats with the pigs with the cat face.
Yeah, and the little spiders.
Yeah,
creepy.
And those. And he said really large, sometimes almost like a bird, a great black thing will be up on the roof when he pulls up, and it'll just stare at him. And or he'll walk out and there'll be one standing across the street staring at him.
Yeah, they know you're coming before you know you're coming. That's just it. The ones I remove are the old demons. The ones that I'm sure you've come across places where, the ground has never been good.
Yes.
There's always a lot of death to it. Always bad things happen. There's a prison, I believe, in Arizona that's that way.
Oh, lovely.
And I wondered why. So I get a call from a nice man up in Battleground. And he says, I've got some things going on here. And my wife died of cancer a couple of years ago. She was in perfect health until we moved into this house. And in the last 2 years, it killed her. And so I said, okay, I'll come up and see what I can find. And he said, you're a Christian. I said, of course I am. You can't do this sort of thing if you're not. So I went up there and I took Aaron, who's the head of our group, and his wife. And I knew it was there even before I got there. And it was one of the old demons. It's what I call the old ones, the more powerful ones. And it was like the perfect storm. There was this demon, there were souls trapped there, there was a portal, there were the Indian spirits that were trying to help the man inside. And the demon came from, was buried in the ground. It was entombed in the ground. And before we got rid of it, Michael made it tell me, because I wanted to know, I said, why is it that there are places in the world where nothing good happens there? It's like full of evil. I don't understand. What is it? And it screamed at me and said, that Lucifer entombed him there. He went against Lucifer, and so Lucifer cast him down and entombed him. He says, that's what you'll find in places like that. And then Michael took him away.
So if Michael takes the demon away, can it ever come back again?
No.
Okay.
But there are plenty more.
Yeah, now there's the old school demons, the old I'm trying to think of the name of that big snake, Leviathan.
Uh-huh.
Now, my understanding with those guys, they could be in Los Angeles going to the Academy Awards at the exact same time as they're in 2000 BC, as they can be exact same time 500 years in the future, because there is no time to them, so they can be occupying different spaces in different times.
Time means nothing on the other side.
Yeah.
Nothing whatsoever. The thing is, I wrote a book called The Dark Side of the Paranormal.
Mm-hmm.
And it talks about the different classes. I only talked about the major ones, like the old demons, what I call the old ones. I liken those to the archangels. They're old and they're wise. And then you have the lesser demons. The lesser demons are the ones that cause problems in the physical world. And of course, there's their sidekicks, the minions, which can look like any number of ugly little spitty things. And then there's the shadow people, that type of thing. And a shadow person is a minion. So, but, there are fears. They do have fears, like anybody. Demons do have. They are afraid of some things.
Mm-hmm.
And they have an absolute fear of dying. Because when they are sliced through with a white light sword, their molecules are split. And they're sent, their energy is sent among the stars. So when we die, we have another chance. When an archangel kills them, and that has to be for something really bad, then they cease to exist.
Well, you're a demon. Your job is to do bad stuff.
Yeah.
What is the level of badness that you have to do? If you possess a little girl and she jumps off a bridge, or...
No, I'll give you an example.
Okay.
Hitler and Rommel had demons attached to them.
Okay.
And those demons are no more. Because Michael and Gabriel were sent to bring them before God for judgment. And they went before him for judgment. And God said, basically you committed genocide. That's not acceptable. I cannot forgive you for that. And he asked Ariel to kill them.
Okay.
And so she killed them both, so they no longer exist. So that's the kind of thing we're talking about.
You said Rommel. Did you mean Himmler?
That one of those guys,
Yeah, okay, good. Because Rommel
I'm not good with those names.
Rommel was just a really good soldier who then decided he wanted to kill Hitler. And Hitler had him executed. Yeah. That's interesting because I know as a policeman, I work with a lot of people that during a very weak moment in their life, whether alcohol or drug abused and their energy drops, they're easily manipulated by other negative energies. And some people that I know see them, but they see them as like a monkey coming out of the person's shoulders and kind of peering over top of their head. And this monkey has like a cat's face with red eyes. Mm-hmm. Are you familiar with those minions?
See, the thing is, a minion will look inside your head, and they will find what scares you. They will find your image of what you think one of them should look like, and they become that. They show themselves to you as that.
Oh, okay.
See, it's not like, they all look like that. No. I mean, if mine, when I first started doing this, they all wanted to come out as spiders because I really hate spiders. But it's like, really? Come on. Is that all you got?
Yeah. These, my friends who see them, I don't think they know, they being these dark energies, know that they're going to be seen. It's
and they really don't care, to say the truth.
Okay, because I've heard when they make eye contact with these things, they kind of look and they get a little torqued and they'll take off. But one of my friends, actually the spirit medium that I was dealing with when I first realized all this stuff was going on around me, not with the negative side though. She was walking down a street in downtown Vancouver here in British Columbia, and she happened to stop at a crosswalk, and she was going to cross a street or something, and a car went by, and she said whatever was in the car driving was not human. It was just black and evil. So it was probably one of our local gangsters, but she didn't see him as a gangster. She saw him as just a black entity, just evil, and it just chilled her.
Yeah, she sees what I see whenever I remove one.
Oh.
They're not nice. They're very nasty. I get called everything but a white woman. That's okay. They can't bother me.
Oh yeah.
They always try to scare you. They always try to intimidate you. And it's like, and they use the foulest language in the world.
Yeah.
But it's like, is that all you got? Okay, whatever. I'll let you finish.
Yeah. That's I learned that as a policeman. You're just going to look at them and giggle when they start swearing at you.
Exactly. I was like, okay, whatever.
I had an incident of sleep paralysis as I brought home 3 energies one night, and the next night I had them, and my friend who came in and we cleaned them out the next night, and we actually had them cross over. We talked them into all getting together and moving on. But she said, did it growl or did it laugh at you as you were trying to call Michael and get everything cleaned up? And I said it growled. And she said, oh, good. That means it's human. If it laughs at you, it's demonic.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, go ahead, try. But Michael's very strong with me, too. Michael and Haniel are the two that are allegedly very strong with me. But I've used Michael for my paranormal investigations. That's how I clean and before block going in and clean coming out. And
he's like, you're lucky I can be in more places, several places at the same time.
Oh, yeah. I use him. I go on my long motorcycle trips. I imagine building I ask him to help me build a kind of a blocking mechanism in front of me and behind me on both sides. And I've never had a problem. So it works out well. But I have brought spirits home with me accidentally because I totally forgot to clean. And I've had brought some poor gentleman home with me, and we had to kind of ask him to leave the next day. But Michael actually helped my daughter and I move a ghost out of the basement of a kid that used to live here and died in his early 20s, but came back, and we moved him on. So that worked out well. So he's been pretty good around here.
Yeah, Michael enjoys that, but he enjoys removing demons, I guess, the best of all.
Oh, yeah. It gives
him and Gabe, they kind of rub their hands together like, all right, it's on.
I guess
I'm like, you guys enjoy this too much. And they're like, yeah.
Yeah, so because Michael, honestly, he could be doing this with you in Oregon, again, at the exact same time he's doing it with somebody else 200 years from now.
Right.
At the same time as he's doing it in the medieval England.
Yeah. We have no concept of time. It means nothing.
Yeah. Time or space, because he can be everywhere at the same time. What a cool job. Okay, it's not a cool job, because we had a listener on the show who we found out later is actually an angel.
Cool. Yeah, they welcome on us.
And Skeeter, who's Skeeter Wellhouse, who was actually going to be down at the Paracon in Portland with you coming up, and me. She asked him, do you have two lines on your back, on your shoulders? And he said, yeah. That's funny you should ask that. And she said, yeah, that's where your wings were. It's like, and he's a really nice guy, and was always saying, I always have a hard time finding a girlfriend. And Skeeter's saying, because you're not supposed to at this point. You're supposed to. Something's about to happen. We're coming into a bit of a shift, and your job is to report back why these crazy people do things the way they do. And I kept the pronouncing of his name is it's Jehoel. It's like a Jehol or Yohol.
Jehol.
Yeah, and that's who it is. So it's good. Now I know an angel. I could phone, who just found out he was an angel, so it's kind of embarrassing.
Now you know an archangel.
Yeah, now I know the archangel. But I guess this guy used to worked for Michael. He's his associate of Michael's, and he was charged to restrain Leviathan and walk around destroying those people who used to worship false idols or something at the part of the siege of Jerusalem back in the day.
Yeah, clean house. Yeah.
Clean house, yeah. So I know him. I can introduce you to him someday, or actually have Michael introduce you. I
was going to say Michael can introduce me.
Yeah. I'm not going to tell you where he lives, but it's an estate not too far from yours. But very, very interesting young man. Very, very interesting young man.
Yeah, I know another archangel that lives in human form that lives in Paris.
Oh, very cool.
There are 8 of us in the world at this moment in time.
Oh, do you know all each other? Do you know who?
I know 2 of them, I haven't come across the others. It's hard sometimes for them to make the transition. Some go crazy.
Okay, what I'm going to do off air, and I know this drives my listener crazy, I'll get you the contact information for our friend, and you can double check before you call him, but we're pretty sure he's the guy. And there's some information that we've been giving him through Spirit. Mm-hmm. Hey, do you actually connect with? I know you may have to open yourself up, but something just touched me on my right side, and I'm by myself in the studio here in the little log cabin, and I'm going, okay, what the heck was that all about? And I've had my dad, who's passed, grab me by the collar and pull me back in my chair once, and I had an orb the size of a golf ball kind of go from weaving through here from right to left across the screen and across my desk on one broadcast, and I was trying to keep my thoughts straight as I'm watching this thing wobbling across. So every so often, things happen here.
Yeah, that was Michael.
Oh, it was? Oh, that's kind of cool.
Michael said that was me.
All right. Well, thank you,
Michael.
Until
I know that I am still here.
Oh, good. Yeah, he's a good guy to have around. Your books, when you started, you put I'm going to drag you kicking and screaming back to your books. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to drag you kicking and screaming back to the books at this time because we do have a break coming up. And for those of you who are listening and want to look up a little bit more about June Lundgren, she is got a website for her books at www.demonseekers.com. She also her website at mysticconnections.org, and there's also Demon Seer SEER.com, and you can drop by there and look up some stuff about what this young lady does. And it's now time for a 7-minute stretch. It's time to get up there, fill your cup, empty your bladder, do what you have to do, and we're going to come right back with more from June Lundgren right after our 7-minute stretch.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott, and I would like to invite you to listen Monday through Friday right here on Spaced Out Radio. 3 hours a night of the top stories with the top guests, ranging topics from UFOs to ETs, ghosts to Sasquatch, and everything in between. We are live every night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. So come on in and take a listen at spacedoutradio.com. Spaced Out Radio will take you out of this world.
Hi there, this is your psychic medium Joanna, and I would love it if you would join us every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. With host James Tyson, we'll bring you personal psychic messages on 2 mediums and a large. Questions about love, life, career changes. We would love it if you would come and join us live. Call in and listen in for the experience. Allow us to open the doors to your other side. 2 mediums and a large, heard only on Spaced Out Weekend at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for news beyond the mainstream news? Head to spacedoutradio.com and check out the SOR Spacewire. This is Spaced Out Radio's Eric Markham, News Director for the SOR Spacewire. Daily, I will bring you intriguing stories and outlandish reports from what's going on around the world. UFO sightings, paranormal activity, conspiracies, alternative health, and so much more. And if you have news, email me at news@spacedoutradio.com.
Attention Spaced Out Radio listeners. For only $5 a month, you can join Spaced Out Radio Space Travelers. Your membership at spacedoutradio.com will give you access to private fan area on the website, get you a monthly newsletter, draws for monthly swag, and a whole lot more. Sign up today to become a part of the Spaced Out Radio experience.
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Greetings and salutations, space travelers, from the Chronicles of the Unknown team.
What is Chronicles of the Unknown? I keep hearing about this thing.
It's a new paranormal reality TV show based right here in beautiful British Columbia, Canada. Follow our team as we uncover claims of activity on the Caribou Gold Rush Trail. You can also follow us here every third Monday, where two members of our team will be available to answer your questions. We'll give you some equipment updates and some of our experiences on the road, right here on Spaced Out Radio.
For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. Stories so weird that will leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Find yourself constantly looking up in the sky, looking for answers? Have you had extraterrestrial contact? Are you an abductee? Looking for answers to your experiences? Hi there, I'm R. Keith Andrews, Spaced Out Radio's resident ET expert. Join me live the first Friday of every month, where I take questions from the Spaced Out Radio chat room and help you understand those from the far-off world. It's 2 hours of knowledge every experiencer should listen to. Hope to see you there.
Hey everybody, this is Patrick Webster Small, and I'm here to bring you the Webster Phenomena every Saturday night, live at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern. If you're looking for aliens and extraterrestrials, well, we've got them. Big and tall, short and small. You're bound to find what you're looking for. So join me on the Webster Phenomena right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Hi there, this is Jolene with Reveal Reiki and Readings, and I want you to relax. Let me help you chill out and get in touch with your body, mind, and soul. In this busy world, sometimes we need to let go, and this is where I can help. Visit my website, rivuletrndr.wix.com/rivuletrndr, or my Facebook page, Rivulet R&R, to set up an appointment for relaxation, Reiki, or readings. No matter where you are, it's time for you to make time for you.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Every month on Spaced Out Radio, we look into the deep and dark reports of cryptids roaming around the world with me, Rob Morphy from Cryptopia.us. I would love it if you would join me and host Dave Scott as we delve into the most arcane stories and reports regarding creatures of the unknown. My job is to hunt down the details and bring the evidence forward to you. These aren't your regular Bigfoot stories I'm talking about either. You can find out more about crypto history at spacedoutradio.com.
Tonight's edition of Spaced Out Weekend is brought to you by spacedoutradio.com, where you can now sign up to become a Space Traveler member. Now, for the final time tonight, here's Spaced Out Weekend's James Tyson.
Welcome back, everybody. Thank you, Dave. Welcome back to Spaced Out Weekend. Thanks for listening to us on spacedoutradio.com. And say, if you try to even go near our SOR Space Travelers Club yet, it's Dave likes to say it's $5 a month, but you know what? Go to PayPal, give us a donation, and with that, your name gets entered into a monthly prize draw, access to private group interviews, access to a special section on our website, and much more. And Yeah, it's actually a pretty good deal. And I know because it's costing me a ton of money to mail out books to people. And I'm still about 8 or 9 books behind mailing them all over the place. Thank you very much, Dave. When do I get a free... I need one of those owls. You know those owls like on Harry Potter where they just give them the book and off it goes. And while you're at spacedoutradio.com, go read the latest blogs. Dave is writing one now. Don't mind his spelling. And check out Eric Markham's SOR Space Wire for your latest and weird news. We also have our SOR Sightlines. And if you've had an experience and wanted it investigated by our researcher, Mike Smith, just fill out a Sightlines report and we'll get back to you. All information is 100% confidential. And now we're going to go back, dragging our little, I'm going to say demon hunter, our demon hunter, June Lundgren, in kicking and screaming. No, we're not. She's not kicking and screaming. Hello, June.
Hello.
Hello. Before the break, we were talking about angels among us. And one of the reasons we were talking about it was, or I brought it up anyway, was in regards to this shift that could be coming. Now, in the break, we talked briefly, you and I, about you getting some information back a couple of years ago, and you did some automatic writing. What did you pick up on what could possibly happen if us humans continue on our human ways without veering off to a more open and respectable existence?
One of the things I got was, at that time, was that, of course, on the other side, time means nothing. Mm-hmm. But they gave me the number 150 years. And they were talking about the volcanoes under the ocean, the ones that was the Ring of Fire, something like that. They're going to activate, and there'll be a lot of underwater volcanoes going off, and a lot of our electronic things. Basically, we're going to have to go back to the old way of doing things. Bartering system, money will mean nothing. Humans will survive, but we'll have to rebuild all over again.
Yeah.
And the fall of they have what God explained to me is there's 9 people that sit on a panel that have to do with the finances of the world, and that these people basically control the economy and everything. And there's going to be the death of 2 of them at the same time, which will throw the financial world into a spin.
Okay.
And that we're going to have to look towards the oceans to supply us with a new source of food. And I'm not talking about fish. I'm talking about, kelp and things like that, growing things under the sea.
Interesting. We've got, it's funny, we Skeeter's information that she's been getting in the last little while was a collapse of the banking system internationally. Money, if you have it in the bank, it's all electronic, and when they flick the switch, it disappears.
Exactly.
When the doors of the bank don't open, you have no money. And if everybody cannot access money, like your paychecks are automatically deposited. You automatically pay bills coming out of that. Use your Interact machine and your credit cards. So cash really doesn't exist that much anymore unless you're a drug trafficker. But she was saying, that's going to go. And she also said, get back to learning how to sew, learning how to fish, hunt, skin an animal, be able to cook.
Exactly. We're going back to the old way of doing things.
And seeds, the other thing, and have collect seeds. And then we got onto the whole thing
Preferably no GMO, thank you.
Yeah. Well, she got back into the thing where, like, if I had seeds and somebody came and said, I want some of your seeds, what do I do? And, you know, we determined that they're our seeds. They're mankind seeds. You give them out. And you say, look, if you're having trouble eating, join me. We'll work together. You're a carpenter, and I'm a fisherman. We'll all get along fine. We'll make it work. But it's working together that's going to happen. And the Ring of Fire, definitely. That she had that too, but that was a direct result of the flip and change of the magnetic poles. That causes the tectonic plates to release pressure, and you've got tsunamis, and you and I live in the Ring of Fire, for goodness sakes.
Yep.
All up and down the coast, up into Alaska and around the Bering Strait, down into Japan. Got volcanoes and fissures and faults all over the place around here. On a clear day, Mount Baker, which is it's a nice volcano, but there's a little steam vent still releasing out the back end of it on the east. You know, right down into the States to Mount Shasta and Rainier, and we've got enough of them around here to warm things up for quite a while. Yeah, so it's interesting. The information that you got is identical to what we've been getting through the readings on our shift, which again is tomorrow. And which is interesting too is that people have been whining and complaining about the elections in the United States. If you think about it, have you ever seen two people working in the office who've known each other for years be so divided and absolutely on polar opposite sides on a politician or a politics in your life?
I've never seen this much protest for any president.
Yeah.
Since I've been alive, anyway.
Yeah, it is something that it was just meant to be. That person is in the place he is supposed to be at this time in history. And suck it up, Buttercup. There was nothing anyone could do. He is where he is supposed to be, and that's why people on one side of the group and look at the other side of the group saying, how could you even think? You know, how could you have voted Democrat? How could you have voted Republican? It's the way it's supposed to happen. You're supposed to have that polarization, because that's going to lead into something else that's going to be a bit negative in the next couple of years. And while we're focused so much in North America on our news on this individual in that position, the same type of thing are happening across Europe. But we're not seeing it because we're focused on our backyards. So it's not just here, it's going on all over the place.
Oh yeah.
So I'm coming down to live with you in Oregon, and because you're on a farm. Okay, so hopefully it's a big farm, because I'm bringing my family. And
we have 3 acres. We have a 4,000 square foot home.
Oh my gosh! All right, so it's
all horse barn.
All right, I'm going to go live with my in-laws. They have I think 5 sections of land and a cattle herd. So you can come up you can come live with us. Bring your horses. Now,
no horses, cattle.
Cattle.
Red Angus.
Oh, nice. And they taste like chicken. Okay, no.
Yeah.
You've been doing animal communication ever since you were a little peanut. How does that kind of come along as you're growing up? All of a sudden, do you actually hear an animal's thoughts?
You know, it's funny. You know, some people who are animal communicators get, feelings. Some people get flashes of things. Some people get a word here and there. Some people, just get impressions. I get a full-on conversation. like I'm talking to you. They're kind of, if they have never communicated with the person before, they're kind of taken aback at first. But once they realize that, you know, I can understand them, they can understand me, then it's on, you know, they start telling me what they want. You know, I'd like more meat, thank you. You know, I don't like the turkey, and don't make her get rid of those vegetables. Yeah, or my side hurts, or my back hurts, or that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's I don't really like. It's funny. I was reading oracle cards, and all of a sudden, on two occasions, I flipped a second card over, and I was getting information from a cat who had passed, talking about the new cat that this people owned, that something's wrong with it, and to watch for it. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. I was reading the cards, and someone said, well, you're an animal communicator. I said, well, no, I'm not. And they said, no, James, look what you just did. You got information from a spirit of an animal about a real animal that's alive. And I said, oh, because I thought animal communicators, you actually had to come up to a living animal and communicate. And they said, well, living, dead, still an animal.
Yeah, my son, from the time he was 5 years old, he was in constant connection with Keiko, the killer whale. And so he's still in communication to this day.
Oh. Interesting.
All it took was for him to see the picture of the whale before it even came here. And he was in communication.
Interesting. Yeah,
that's the way I work too. I can get a picture, and I can communicate with them, living or dead.
Now, what happens now? I look at animal communication, and as a kid, growing up on the West Coast here, I worked in a fish cannery, a salmon cannery, where thousands and thousands of pounds of salmon would come in every day. Mm-hmm. Like, is there a certain level of animal that you cannot communicate with, or is it all living beings?
I don't like bugs because they don't have any attention span and they won't listen. You know, they just will not listen to you. I don't care. They just, you know, I've tried over the years and they don't want to. You know, they know everything. You don't know anything. So
yeah, after we're dead, they're just going to eat us. So move along.
There you go.
Yeah, we're just food for them.
Yeah. You know, certain animals, you know, like animals come into the world and some of them know, you know, this is what I'm here for. And I'm going to live this long, and that's the way it is. And when they cross, they don't have the baggage we do, so that when they die, 99.9% of the time, they cross without any baggage and they ascend without any problems. It's only people that have baggage. And then there are the ones that refuse to leave their masters. You know, that 1% refuses to leave.
Now, what do you mean leave their masters?
And there's a couple of castles in England, which I'm going to visit when I go in June, that are haunted by dogs. And they are the old sheepdogs, which were used as nursery maids. And they died, and their charges were still little. And it was their responsibility to take care of those babies. And they died, and so they stayed on to take care of the babies.
Oh. I gotcha.
Or maybe they've always took care of their master, and the master was dying or whatever, or had a disease, and they died, and they will stick around and wait for the master to cross.
All right. It's funny you should say that. We have a local pet grooming place that's also a little doggy daycare, and they went out and bought security cameras for the entire building at Costco, which has the IR lighting, And
right.
if you've got your dog staying overnight in their doggy daycare, and it's a big wide open room, they're not all crated up or anything, they just kind of sleep wherever.
Yeah.
You could tune in, if you're on holidays across the country, you can tune in online and see if your dog's there. Well,
that's nice.
They're also getting a lot of, because, you know, as a paranormal investigator, you realize that we use IR cameras.
Right.
They're getting a lot of ghosts of dogs who are there playing with the other dogs that they recognize them. Oh, that's so and so because it's the size and the shape, and this is where so and so used to little spot used to sleep, and this is the dogs that used to play with, and it's running beside the other dogs.
Yeah, they come in visitation. Yeah.
Oh, which is kind of cool. And,
yeah, it is.
And there's a old power plant out here, a hydroelectric power plant that was built by a guy named John Ruskin back in the 1920s. We had it open up for public paranormal tours, and it's just obviously bristling with electric energy. And you set the cameras up, and every so often you see a dog kind of walk out and poke its head around the corner, look at you, and walk across the hall. And you'd move your head away from the camera and go, "There's no dog there. What the heck is that?" So yeah, we're seeing them. We do see them.
Yeah.
I'd like to know what happened to the dinosaur energy, but maybe that's all moved on.
I was going to say it's probably moved on because they come back again. I have a Cocker Spaniel right now. He can't weigh more than 19 pounds, but he is the reincarnation of my Doberman. I had a Doberman which was a 200 pounds and 6 foot from nose to tail. It was called a Gladiator Dobie, and a gentle soul. But he died, and then about a year after he died, this one was born. And he told me as I watched his soul leave that he would come back. And I said, well, help me find you. And he said, no, I will. Don't worry about it. And then I just happened to look in paper at this particular time and said, that's him. Got to go get him.
Oh, wow. So
yeah, all my dogs come back again.
Nice. I've got my dog, Kirby, just sitting beside me here. Can you communicate with him just by opening yourself up?
I can. Hold on a second. He's got a wicked sense of humor.
Oh, yeah. He's funny, all right.
He's like, he says, tell him to get off there and get me something to eat.
Oh, yes.
I need something.
He's fat. He's gaining too much weight, and it's bad for him.
I know, but he's hungry.
He's always hungry. Is he okay?
That's what I told him. I told him you're always hungry.
Is his joints and everything okay?
He's got a little bit of beginning of arthritis in the back hip bones.
Okay.
And the back spine area would be our L5S1. The very back where the buns meet the tail.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's just beginning.
And
a little bit of glucosamine chondroitin will work.
Okay. Is his legs okay? His knees okay?
Like I said, he has the beginnings of arthritis.
Okay. No legs worse than the other?
Yeah. He says my left one is a little worse than my right one. He says, but it's okay. I'm getting around.
Okay.
And then I hear him say barely.
Barely. He's not that old.
He's dramatic, isn't he?
Well, he's got a bad rear right leg. He had surgery on it. He's got an appliance in there, so he favors it, and it's.
That's habit more. That's habit more than anything for him.
Yeah,
it's what he says. He says, yeah. He does. He's telling me he does it to get sympathy.
Aw.
I told him no. I said it's because you need to lose some weight.
Yeah, you need to lose weight, you old horse. Hey, do you?
My Springer's like that too.
now that you're do the animal communication, does that affect your diet at all?
Does that affect my what? Oh, diet. Oh, okay.
Diet, yeah.
I eat some meat, but I'm not a big eat meat.
Eat meter?
Meat eater, yeah.
Okay.
I used to be a long time ago, but I just don't have the stomach for it much anymore.
Don't have the stomach to, look at a steak and look at a steak on the plate and hear a voice in the background saying, "What? You're going to eat me now?"
No, see, that's the thing. If the spirit's stuck with whatever piece that you're eating or whatever, then I would never be able to eat meat of any kind.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. When they cross completely, and they don't hang around, man. Like, we're out of here.
Well, as a paranormal investigator, I'll throw a question at you that's just related to that. Have you ever seen people go and do paranormal investigations in cemeteries?
Oh, yeah.
If I was
I don't do cemeteries.
Like, why would you go? The only
why
way
are you hanging out?
Only way I've ever had a response is that reading the name on the tombstone out loud.
Yeah.
And then something shows up and says, "What? Do I know you?" And that's the only time.
I take that back. I went to a cemetery once. It was a couple years ago, and it was noon on a Saturday, but it was like a really foggy day, and I'm coming back from getting my nails done, and I hear this little voice say, "Come to the cemetery," and I'm like, "No, I have an appointment. Come to the cemetery." I'm like, "Darn it, okay." So I go to the cemetery, and I pull up, and here's this 4-point buck walking through the cemetery with a bunch of does. And I'm like, "Oh, how cool." And I start snapping pictures. I blew off the ghost. And then I hear him saying, no, take a picture of me. So I whipped around, and I took a picture of him, and he starts laughing. And he drained my battery. I said, "Fortunately for you, I carry a spare." And he just laughed even more. His name is Edward. He was 10 years old, and he died of smallpox. And it's a really old pioneer cemetery. And I said, "Why don't you move on? Move on." He said, "No, I like it here. I like the deer. I play with the deer." He says, I'm having too much fun." Because unfortunately for me, I work right in front of this cemetery.
Oh.
But Edward is not allowed to visit me except on my lunch hour.
Okay.
But that's the only time. I've got a picture of him in my Facebook page. There's a cemetery scene, and you can see him in there.
Oh, very cool. Hey, now you say Edward's hanging out at the cemetery. I have heard that people who don't know they've passed kind of hang out with, during a wake, and they have this big celebration, and then they all go to the cemetery and they bury the person, and everybody gets a ride home, and the person who's dead is going, "Hey, I'm sure I came with Bob, but he left already, and why is everyone ignoring me?" And they end up staying there and looking at them, the tombstone, thinking, "Crap, that was me."
Yeah.
But that's the only time I've heard they hung out.
Well, there was a guy up in LeGrand, Oregon. A friend of mine invited me up for a weekend and went up to visit. And she said, "I have this friend who needs some help." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And so she pulls up in front of this house, and I start walking through the patio there, and I'm like, "Really?" I said, "There's a ghost here. It's a man, an older man." She's like, "Come inside." So I went in the house and said hi to the woman, and then headed straight for the living room chair. and sat down on the couch across from him. And he said, "You can see me?" I said, "Yeah, I can see you." And I said, "You know you're dead, don't you?" He says, "I do now." I said, "Well, what do you last remember?" And he said, "I remember sitting in my chair and my chest hurt really bad. And then everything went blank. Everything went black." So I told him, I said, "Listen," I said, "you had a heart attack. You died and you went into what we call in medicine shock." I said, "You went into the equivalent of shock." I said, "And then when you woke up, you didn't see your body and your house was the same." He said, "Yeah." And I said, "And you didn't know that you were dead because you just kept doing the things you were doing." And he said, "Yes, until my son and daughter-in-law came over. And they couldn't hear me or see me. And then they rented out my house, and the people that were here didn't, take care of my house, so he made sure they left." He said, "But the people that are in my house now I like because, they take care of my house." I said, "You got to cross." I said, "What about your mom, your dad, your wife? Do you want to see them again?" It took me a while to talk him into it, but he finally crossed. But, he didn't know he was dead. He didn't see his body, and he didn't talk to anyone for quite a while. So he had no clue.
Yeah.
Until his son couldn't see him or hear him.
It is interesting dealing with them. And a paranormal investigation, you kind of run into those ones and you think, well, have you ever, when you saw the light, did somebody come and offer you their hand saying, "Hey, you got to come this way"? And I know little children get a little bit freaked out because their parents and their grandparents are still alive, so it's a stranger that comes to them and saying, "Hey, Billy, come, you're over," and stranger danger, I'm not going to go. And that can be a little bit awkward. And I just real quickly here, June, I'm gonna try to fix a humming noise that's in the background. You stand by. I'm gonna phone you right back. Okay.
Okay.
And we're gonna jump back in with June really quick here. I almost phoned Richard by mistake. That would have gone over well, waking him up in the middle of the night. But we're going to try to reconnect. Hello.
I'm here.
Oh, and you brought the humming back with it. It is this weird weather. We here on the West Coast have had a winter we haven't had in the last 10 or 12 years. It is a little bit awkward, and though we are on the West Coast, it's still, we're a long distance away, and a lot of snow, and I know we're having issues at my house, my old 1940s house, with the telephone system. We're not using the telephone system right now, but it is a bit of an awkward situation when it comes to all this stuff, this electronically stuff. And plus, you've got June, who's like glows in the dark anyway. So, tell me what you do. You're going to come out. You do your paranormal investigation. You've written 6 books. Goodness, young lady, you've got 6 books out right now. What got you into writing the books to start with? I know you've got the Medium's Guide to the Paranormal 1 and 2, but you went off and did writing. I want to ask, first of all, the writing that you were doing, do you find that it's almost automatic and these books get written very, very quickly?
I wrote the first book because God came to me and said, I need you to write a book. I'm like, really? And he's like, people need to understand that I do hear their prayers. I do hear them. But what they want is not always what they need. He says, I give them what they need, and they need to understand that. And I'm like, is that all you want to say in the book? And he's like, No. He says, I want you to help people to understand issues with what you call the paranormal. I'm like, oh, okay. So I wrote it. And that one took me a couple years to do. But the next one, Paranormal Encounters, that was, and the next one after that, Paranormal Encounters Book 2.
That's right.
Those are relatively easy because they're all my real life paranormal encounters. Perfect. So those come quickly. The dark side of the paranormal came out of people asking me, I did Body, Mind, and Spirit Expo about 5 or 6 years ago. And my friends are all saying, well, you get to give a lecture, do it about white light stuff. And I'm like, you know what? I've been coming to these things for years and talking to people. I said, nobody ever does a talk about the dark side. So I thought, I'm going to do a talk about the dark side of the paranormal because it's like everybody's afraid to even touch it. So it was time for me to get up and go give my lecture. And I came into the room and nearly fell over because it was standing room only. And I'm like, okay. So I get up there and I give my lecture, and people kept coming by my booth after that, just thanking me for giving the lecture, and I sold out of my books in 20 minutes. And I'm like, okay. So they said, when are you going to write a book about this? And I'm like, and I have friends that are Reiki masters and stuff like that. And we got to talking about it and stuff. And I said, okay, I'll do a book about it. That one took me about 6 months to put together. And then I wrote one called, I wrote a paranormal romance called Out of Time.
Yes, I saw that one.
I really enjoyed working that. My fictional books kind of take on a life of their own. And you intend to stop after so many pages, but they just keep going, like the Energizer Bunny, They just continue on and on. And the book I'm about to release the first of next month is called, is the first in the series, the Demon Seeker series. It is fictional. It's based loosely on real life. It's called Demon Seekers, and the first one's called The Journey Begins. It's about an archangel who's sent down into the physical world to seek out 8 archangels in physical form and help them acclimatize if they haven't already, and to help them understand their abilities and what to do with them. And so I put excerpts from the book on the Demon Seeker website. But she comes down, and this other angel is always reborn right before her. She comes down quite frequently, evidently. Anyway, the other angel comes down and is born before her time to come down, so that he can pave the way for her and show her how to act like a human in that particular time.
Okay.
And it's their journey to find the first one. And little do they know, they found out that Lucifer has sent this old demon because the archangel they're going in search of, who's in human form, has been removing ones that are buried in the ground, entombed in the ground, the old ones, and sending them back. And Lucifer's mad about it. So this other demon is sent to basically do away with the first archangel.
Well, that's no good.
No, but it has a good one.
Yeah, I was just reading a little excerpt, or a little the kind of the cover print on the dark side of the paranormal. It's very interesting. So you cover, information about demons, shadow people, negative earthbound spirits, and how to recognize the difference between them.
Right.
Briefly, can you? How would you recognize the difference between a negative earthbound entity, or let's say, how do you recognize the difference between a demon and just some jackass who hadn't crossed over and was being a jerk around the house?
It's quite simple. Simple for me. When you come across a ghost or an earthbound that's nasty in life and he's nasty in death, which there are quite a few of those, a ghost, an earthbound, you get the typical stuff. You get the cold spots. You get the things moving. It can even show itself. He can even show himself as a 10-foot tall shadow person. And you get all of that with a human spirit. Whereas for a demon, you don't get that type of thing. What you get is, it's hard to explain. It's like it's 100 degrees outside. And on the inside of your body, in the core of your body, you're frozen. You're cold. You're so cold you can never get warm. And you get this sick feeling of dread, an overwhelming feeling of oppression and despair. Those are all signs of a demon, whether it be a shadow person, a minion, lesser demon, old demon.
I get those at tax time every year.
Oh yeah, ain't that the truth?
That overwhelming feeling of dread.
Demon in the IRS.
That's interesting because thank goodness, I've never run into that, and I've been in some really negative places. I believe I heard. I have a priest that we're trying to cross over, but he's killed a couple of kids and sexually abused a bunch, and we're trying to get him to cross, and there's another voice in there saying, don't listen to us, don't listen to them, and I don't think that voice is good. I don't think it's he's not getting good counsel on the other side, let's say. He's also holding back half a dozen of these kids from crossing. He's kind of blackmailing them that, if you cross over, I'm going to tell God what you did, and therefore you're going to go to hell. And we're trying to talk to him and saying, look, you can cross. It's okay. Just go. It's all right.
Those are the hardest ones because they're so entrenched. They're still so entrenched in the physical world life that, they believe they're going to rot in hell. That they're going to burn in hell. Because when you cross over, you leave all that stuff behind. But if you don't cross completely and you remain earthbound, you're stuck in the physical world mindset. Instead of, if he wasn't, he would just let go of it and know that God would judge him. But he has to answer for what he did, and God would deal with him fairly. Yeah.
Well, and that's what, we during our conversation with this guy is, well, first of all, it's like the three yahoos that showed up here. They've done things bad in their life, and they thought they're going to go to hell, so they stayed back.
Right.
Well, we said, well, if you think hell exists, then you must be religious. Therefore, if you are a religious person, you must believe in Jesus. And through Skeeter, like, she's telling me, okay, they're all nodding, like, yeah. And you think you're going to go to hell? Yeah, they're nodding. Well, if you believe in Jesus, do you believe that he died for your sins? And if that's true, do you really believe a God would kill his only son for your sins if you are still going to go to hell?
Right.
So when they kind of went, Oh, all right. As long as they've ticked that box saying, I could go to hell, once they believe hell exists, they have to, in turn, believe the rest of the biblical tale.
Yeah.
And you bring up Jesus dying for your sins. I'm pretty sure prior to the crucifixion, hell was going full bore. After that, it shut down. And, you really got to go sideways. That's why, I shouldn't say that's why, because I don't know. Maybe that's why they're hanging out, quote unquote, above ground a little bit more. But I don't have that information. That's why I ask these questions of people like you, who can talk about that kind of stuff.
There was a rise in 2013. I told a friend of mine, I said, listen, things are going to get a little hairy for, it was like September. I said, for the next 6 to 8 months. I said, you might want to be careful where you go and what you do. And she's like, why? And I said, well, God told me that there's going to be a rise and the light is pushing forward and the darkness is trying to push back. So there's going to be an increase in mental instability, paranormal activity, violence, depression. I said, it's just going to ramp up for the next 8 months. And right after that was when they had that shooting back in Connecticut of all those grade school kids. And she was working right down the street from it. I told her, I said, these things are going to happen, so you have to get through these times. And I sent her, when I started removing demons, I told God, I said, I need something that will help, protect the people that are involved in the situation as well as the people that are with me. Because I can't watch their backs as well as my own. And he says, well, I'm going to give you a special recipe for black salt. And I'm like, okay, because I've heard of black salt, but I didn't know that much about it. And so he gave me a special recipe. And at every phase of the creation of it, he blesses it. And so he says, lay a circle around the people that you want to protect. And I want you to say this. And nothing negative will get through it. And I removed some demons out of the Shanghai tunnels here. And
good, because I'm going there.
Yeah, they're gone. And I put it around the people that were there. And they were all protected. They didn't like the sound of the growls that were coming out when I was ripping those guys out, but, that's the way it goes. That's what it goes.
And that was in 2013?
2013 was when all this came to, all the darkness started. The Shanghai tunnels was, how long ago did we do that? Probably 3 or 4 years ago, something like that.
Do you know when
I can't remember the exact date.
You're familiar with the Islamic State of Iraq?
Oh, yeah.
Guess what year that started?
Probably 2013.
Yep. Yeah. That was their forming was back there.
Yeah.
The Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant. ISIL.
It was always good of God to give me a heads up on that. So I told everybody I knew.
Jeepers. Well, you're psychic. You could probably just go visit people in people's dreams. Come on, you can do that.
Yeah, I have done that, actually.
Oh, quit that. That's I already gave one of my psychics crap for doing that. I shouldn't say I gave her crap.
They asked me to.
That's right. I asked her to. I said, could you come in and check on these? You say there's 3 beings holding me down. Come and see if they're still here. And she says,
look,
I'm walking into your bedroom now, and you've got a very messy and cluttered side table by the bed. And I'm just like, Skeeter, really? Okay, ignore the clutter on the side table. That's all my stuff I've piled up.
Focus on the clutter.
Yeah. There's 2 guys, David and Michael are standing there. Andrew's the guy over there. He's the one that started it and went through the whole thing. But it's like, really? You got to comment on my night table? So I cleaned it off. Everything's okay. So I'm not inviting psychics to wander through my bedroom, remote view me anymore. which is okay. Yeah. In your work, you're the occult specialist on your paranormal group. What does that entail?
It entails knowing. Well, nobody ever knows all there is to know about, the dark side, the white side, things like, Indian lore, like a lizard person is actually a good person, and Native American, things like that, plus, the demon removal thing.
Oh, okay. Do you run into that a lot?
Unfortunately, it's like I told God, I said, come on, give me a break here. I said, can I have a couple weeks off or something? Well, they come in waves. You can always tell when the negatives energy is ramping up, because I'll get all these calls. Well, somebody told me to contact you, or a friend of a friend gave me your name, and so I'm getting all these emails and text messages, and I'm like, okay. So like I said, they go in waves. Sometimes I'll have like a load full of them, like every weekend I'll have to go and do something, and then I'll have a couple of weeks off, and then it'll start all over again. Right now it's starting to pick up again.
Okay, that's interesting. Is it change of the time of year?
It's got nothing to do with the time of year, and everything to do with what is happening between the battle between light and dark right now. There's a lot of things going on right now. Michael came to me the other day and said, it's coming. I said, what are you talking about? He's like, there's something coming that you'll have to do battle with. I'm like, really? And he's like, this one is stronger than this is the strongest one you've ever had to deal with. And I'm like, oh, good. I said, can you give me a little more information? He's like, that's all I can tell you at the moment. I'm like, oh, great, okay. So I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop right now.
Yeah.
If it's that bad, one of my lectures at the Oregon Ghost Conference is on how to protect yourself in paranormal investigations. A lot of people will go into it without any kind of protection. And one of the chapters in my book, The Dark Side, talks about the myths behind what will and what won't protect you. I have people out there, mediums out there, thinking that a crystal will protect them from a negative entity.
No.
Or break dust.
No, we go through quite a little song and dance before we go in.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
But there are still those out there who won't do it.
Oh, or there's those who come in to the, we'll have a public one, and it'll be it's a museum or something, and we're raising money for the museum, and we'll take people through, and they just all show up with a recorder and a flashlight, and you think, okay, I want you to really concentrate on this. If you believe that there are spirits in here, okay, that's one step closer to believing that there are things on the other side. If you believe there are things on the other side, therefore, in hand, it goes, you have to believe that you can protect yourself by using positive energy. So we're going to take you through this little bit of a song and dance on how to protect yourself. And if you don't, not responsible for if you take something home, call us tomorrow. And if
we'll see what we can do.
I had the Chinese carpenter standing at the foot of my bed, and just about plots, just because I was tired and it was raining. I just thought, what are the odds? I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to go home. It's a long drive. And sure enough, he came home with me. I had a question from one of the chat room from Shar. She was wondering, her dog cowers and kind of gets scared and goes off in a corner a bit. She doesn't know what is scaring it? It obviously sees something, but doesn't know if, is it something evil, demonic, or is it a human ghost?
No, it's a human ghost.
It is?
It's an old woman.
Oh, okay.
Her name is Mary Ellen.
Mary Ellen?
Yeah, just tell Mary Ellen nicely, politely, "You're scaring my dog. Please don't come in here. You can stay outside, but you cannot scare my dog or my children or anyone else."
Yeah. Is it that Mary Ellen doesn't like the dog and is scolding it, or is it just the dog?
It just doesn't like the ghosts. Animals are much more sensitive than we are. And whenever Michael comes, and is earthbound with me, my dogs all go and sit and stare at him. They like him.
Yeah.
I'll sit and stare at him. My husband's like, "What are they looking at?" I'm like, "Never mind, dear.
Never mind. Never mind, dear. It's my boyfriend."
My husband's one of these people. If you can't touch it, feel it, or see it, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Until he got married to me, and now it's not so much.
Yeah, it is a little awkward. I'm sure that, like my animals, my dogs, my pets, cats, or whatever I've had all through my life, have seen things because you'll be sitting with you and they'll sit up and they'll look at a wall and kind of you can see their eyes or their head tracks across the wall.
Exactly.
And then they keep looking at it, shut their eyes, go back to sleep. Like, oh, okay, it's gone now. Can you tell if, like, we're gonna end up going completely sideways on this? But Char wants to know if any aliens have ever been in our house.
No.
Okay, good. But she's in the United States. It could be like Mexicans, right? So
I was going to say it could be that kind.
Yeah, who knows? Mario, what the heck are you doing? It's interesting. It's interesting that the reaction of animals. I've always liked to kind of key off the reaction of animals. I have a great video of a client we did an investigation on, and their dog is barking at something in the closet. And the girl in the investigation is videotaping it on her phone. And we can hear a man saying, we think it's her husband, is saying, "What are you doing? What are you barking at? What do you see? What do you see, boy? Good boy." And then we hear her husband quite clearly beside the camera say, "What do you think the dog's doing?" and we go, "Oh, crap, that wasn't her husband?" So you're hearing the spirit talking to the dog, as opposed to the as her husband, who completely different voice and everything, and we're thinking, oh, that makes sense. Yeah, that house was so active. It was built in 1985. It's actually a townhouse. Uh-huh. They have to turn their AM or FM radio on at night to sleep to drown out the conversation of the couple at the foot of their bed.
You know why, don't you?
No.
There's a ley line running through there.
Oh.
My girlfriend has the same problem. She says it's like a darn freeway. Every morning she bought the house, every night she'd wake up and there'd be a different one standing beside her bed.
Oh, man. With this, in this one...
She says, "I'd like to go to sleep now."
She put her little 1.5, 2-year-old in the crib, came up to check on him, or her, 40 minutes later. The crib was completely dismantled. The mattress is on the floor, all the crib pieces, all the screws were taken out of it, and the baby's laying on the mattress looking at her with her arms up like, "Mom." So she kind of freaked out, called her friend over. They put it all back together, glued it, and put the screws in it so it would never be dismantled again. That's interesting. We went to a restaurant like that where we had two or three psychics come in, and they just stopped and said about 1/3 down the restaurant from right to left, it looked like one of those walking sidewalks at the airport where spirits were just going out of the wall on the right and going out the wall on the left.
Yeah, I liken it to a superhighway or a subway.
That's cool. Hey, you know what time it is? It's almost time for you to go to bed, young lady.
Oh, no, not yet. I have some distance healing to do.
All right. I'm going to let you go. Thank you very much. We're with June Lundgren. She is a wonderful demon seer. Please go to her website and check out her books. They're really cool, and I really like them. MyMysticConnections.org, TheDemonSeer.com, and DemonSeekers.com. Thanks very much, June.
Thank you for having me.
It was a pleasure. And I want everybody out there, you notice the humming sound has stopped? Well, keep an open mind.
This is our last goodbye. Young hearts will stop. Torn souls set free. All that we have is now. If this is what you want, then come to me.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. And hey! Let's be careful out there.
Far over the snow, what are those voices? They sing and they go. What are those voices? Look up for the mountain. Because somebody hide, somebody better hide on through the hill, like a pack of angry wolves on the trail. We are after you, dead or alive. We are out to get you, dead or alive. And forget yourself. If you're the one, better run away. Son, you are done. Throw your gun away. Here come the Mounties to get the man they're after now. Run through the hill like a pack of angry wolves on the trail. Dead or alive, we are out to get you, dead or alive. If you're the one, better run away. Son, you are done. Throw your gun away. Here come the Mounties to get the man they're after. No!
I see dead people.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Dave's not here!
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army. Army officers say the missile, found sometime last week, has been inspected at Roswell, New Mexico, and sent to Wright Field, Ohio, for further inspection.